Got glasses today. Tried reading yesterday without the glasses. These will help. Alright, day 2. Positively Unstoppable, The Art of Owning It by Diamond Dallas Page. We did the foreword yesterday, written by Mick Foley. Let's do the introduction today. Here's a quote from Muhammad Ali. I am the greatest. I am the greatest of all time. I said even before I knew I was. Muhammad Ali. You're not going to believe this, but the one question I get asked over and over again is wrestling fake? Seriously? That people would still ask that question in this day and age boggles my mind. So let me answer it before we go further. Wrestling is not fake. Spoiler alert, it's predetermined. I think of it as physical ballet. Very physical ballet. The bottom line is you can't fake gravity. I'm no physics expert, but I can't tell you from personal experience that when you're lifted more than 7 feet in the air and slammed full force to the mat by Kevin Nash, who's 6 foot 10 inches and 335 pounds of solid muscle, there's a good chance that you're going to incur some serious damage, and that's what happened to me. When two discs exploded in my back, I'll admit there might have been a few times in my career when I pretended to be in excruciating pain, but that night it was a shoot. Wrestling lingo for 100% real. This is Diamond Dallas Page's books, by the way. I was in agony. And then afterwards, when 3 top spine specialists told me that I'd never wrestle again, the psychological pain set in and I went into a real tailspin. I had just signed a 3-year, multi-million-dollar contract with Ted Turner's World Championship Wrestling organization, and I was headlining with Karl Malone, Dennis Rodman, and Hulk Hogan in the biggest WCW events in the world. I was devastated. Everything I had worked so hard for in my life was suddenly ripped out of my hands in a matter of seconds. It was one of the worst moments of my life, but it's what happened next, how I reacted to the situation that has defined who I am today. At the time, I had no idea it would lead to my developing a multi-million-dollar fitness company, DDP Yoga. One that has changed countless lives. I had no idea that almost 2 decades later it would help me save 2 of my closest friends' lives. I'm not going to lie, I was bummed out, depressed, and feeling sorry for myself, as you might expect someone would be when he's told that his childhood dream is over. Who's going to challenge the opinion of some top doctors in the world? And anyway, the answer to that question, my friend, would be me. There have been quite a few instances in my life when I have been told something can't be done, and I've been fortunate enough to prove time and time again that you should never say never, and that possibilities can and must be created through sheer determination and work ethic. When you are able to accomplish things others say are impossible, you start believing in yourself enough to challenge more of these ideas. And while having the confidence to really believe in yourself doesn't come easy, it gets easier each time you knock down another wall. Trust me, I believe that walls exist to separate those who want something badly enough from those who do not. When I was laid up at home, barely able to touch my knees, it was desperation that forced me out of my comfort zone. I could have easily thrown in the towel, but screw that. I'm not one to give up that easily. One day, when my then wife Kimberly came up from the basement dripping with sweat but looking energized, I asked her what she had been doing. Yoga, you should try it, she said. I first thought to myself, fuck that, I ain't doing yoga. See, at 42 years old, I was the guy who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga. But then I thought to myself, what do I have to lose? I'll admit that I hated yoga at first. All those super slim, super flexible bodies on the videos contorting into positions I had no business trying to get into. I'm sure if there were tapes of my early attempts to achieve some of those positions, they would be common gold. But in truth, that struggle helped me to learn one of the most important lessons in my life up to that point. It helped me to learn the value of flexibility in my body, and perhaps more important, in my mind. Within a few weeks, I knew the yoga was really helping, but it wasn't giving me everything I needed. So I added some rehabilitation techniques, some slow burn calisthenics, and something I now call dynamic resistance. My core started getting stronger and stronger. So I started putting in multiple hours of what I would call yoga for normal people. Sometimes 3 times a day, in the privacy of my basement. I was combining my traditional workouts with yoga, and I felt like I had discovered some sort of secret formula. At the time, I didn't know what it would become, but it ended up saving my wrestling career and changing my life forever. In less than 3 months, I was back competing in the WCW. Three world heavyweight championships later, I fulfilled my childhood dreams, all because I was more flexible and stronger than I had ever been in my life. 2 decades later, I would never have imagined that this would lead to be one of the most popular and respected fitness programs in the world. DDP Yoga, DDPY for short. From a guy who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga to having my name beside it. Now that's being flexible, and it's kind of hilarious. I'd like to say that it was a straight shot to the top, but it sure as hell wasn't. Instead, it took 8 years of hard work, lots of zigs and zags, huge financial risks, and a heartbreaking divorce from Kimberly, and a bunch of other harrowing stories I'll tell you about later. I guess you could say it took nearly a decade for me to become an overnight success again. Along the way, I learned to embrace going against traditional thinking. Believe me when I tell you that there were more than a few people who laughed at the idea of a professional wrestler doing yoga. So you can imagine just how much I believed in it to stick with it this long. One of the challenges I encountered is getting people to open their minds to something completely outside of what they're accustomed to. I often use a little humor to break through to people. For example, I always use the tagline, DDP Yoga, it ain't your mama's yoga. Too corny? Maybe, but it's funny and it gets your attention, and you instantly know that it's something different. And you want to find out what it means, don't you? I'll explain that later. The truth is that DDP Yoga hardly resembles traditional yoga, and that's part of the reason why I now brand it DDPY. Yoga played a huge role in its genesis and development, but I am a big believer in moving beyond tradition and thinking outside of the box. In preparation for achieving something truly incredible, perhaps something you've never believed was possible for you, you had better be ready to engage in some non-traditional thinking. In other words, you ain't your mama's self-improvement book. Instead, I like to think of this ain't your mama's self-improvement book. Instead, I like to think of this book as a roadmap to becoming unstoppable. Along this journey, I have met countless people who have overcome seemingly impossible odds, and these people have inspired me to keep following my purposes in life, which, by the way, has very little to do with jumping off the top rope of a wrestling ring. I'll share their powerful stories with you in the hope that you too will be inspired to believe that anything, and I mean anything, is possible. I have seen many people follow the principles outlined in this book, and they have all improved their lives dramatically. My plan is intentionally simple to follow, but it requires action on your part. You did not expect me to do the work for you. Yeah, right. This is your life, nobody else's, so own it. It all starts by making the decision to read this book, commit to its program, and put in the work. If you aren't willing to put in the work, then you might as well take this damn book and use it to level out that treadmill that's now doubling as your towel rack. We all have those. Over the last 15 years, I've watched countless people take ownership of their lives, physically, mentally, and emotionally. In a relatively short period of time, some have lost hundreds of pounds and gone from being unable to walk across the room to doing headstands. I've never seen anyone reach a fitness goal overnight, but I have witnessed a precise instant when a real and massive shift occurs in a person's attitude. I call that the moment when someone finally flips the switch. It begins when we discover what we really want, then commit to follow the steps that will turn that goal into a reality. We tend to be stubborn creatures, but it is possible to have a breakthrough, regardless of where we are at in our lives. Remember, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I borrowed that line from Henry Ford, but what the hell did he ever do besides change the world? He also knew a thing or two about overcoming long odds. When you summon the confidence to say, I can, you'll be well on your way towards owning it. The basic premise of this book is simple and honest. I remind people all the time that we only get one body in life, and that how much we move it and what we feed it is ultimately up to us. And the obvious truth is that we only get one life, and what we do with it is entirely in our hands. After years of working with others, I've had to accept that while I can provide the tools of change, people have to change themselves. But you know that, or you wouldn't still be reading this book. So here's the deal, my friend. In this book, I'm going to tell you the secret, but it's not the same secret that's been in a zillion other self-help books, or the one that was in the movie called The Secret. which was based on one of those zillion books. In that movie, there's a scene in which a kid imagines there's a bicycle outside his bedroom door. He repeats a positive affirmation for about a day, and about a day after day, he repeats a positive affirmation about it day after day. And then one day he opens the door and bingo, there's this shiny new bike. Well, that's a colossal bunch of bullshit. The secret may have illustrated how important it is to manifest one's dream into reality and significance of affirmations, but it also left the real secret out. The part where that kid gets up at the crack of dawn every morning and completes his paper route on his rickety old bike until one day he earns the money to buy the bike of his dreams. Anything you really truly want that you don't have, you're going to have to work for. I'm sorry if I just burst your bubble, but look at the bright side. If you can practice and master the art of owning it, I'm certain you will achieve anything that you can set your mind to. And that's the simple truth. Bang! Let's get started. I belong to the DDPY program. This is the third year that I've entered into the challenge. First year I lost over 110 pounds. A lot of it not in the challenge. Only about 40 of it was in the challenge. I didn't find the challenge until I started dieting, I started fasting. I started a fast in June of 2020 and failed. All right, shot my blood sugars through the roof. It was just unsustainable, and I was doing it wrong. Don't do that again, at least not without guidance. In September, there were the giant forest fires, threatened to burn down the entire neighborhood. Did burn down a few entire neighborhoods in the area. And I was just too fat to move. I was still at, 275, 280, something like that. I mean, a far cry from the 309 in the summer when I had started. But I couldn't move. And I swore I would never let that happen again. So I started working out in October doing DDP. Why? The thing kept beeping at me about motivational Mondays and fabulous Facebook Fridays, and I just never paid attention to it because my click hadn't happened yet. The thing that was gonna push me over the edge to get going. I mean, when them fires happened, it put me right back into that damn war. I was surrounded. I lived around. Forget it. Anyway, I've lost 100. I'm hovering at 110. Started at 309. I'm down to 200. I'm currently going after carnivore style but I'm not going to do that permanently. All right, I miss my fruits. I miss my veggies and my. Believe it or not, I never ever thought I'd say I miss veggies, but I do. I've just gotten used to it. DDP not only teaches us how to lose weight and get back into shape, and his program really meets you anywhere, but it's all about mindset, and it's all about finding the correct diet for you and cleaning everything up. He shows us how to cook. He shows us how to, deal with everything in life. I highly recommend this program, and I highly recommend this book. So, all right. So tomorrow, we'll go with Chapter 1. And that's going to be Positively Unstoppable, Living Life at 90%. Before we get to Chapter 1, he does have a video on Venmo, DDP, Living Life at 90%. Why don't you go ahead and watch it? We'll get to it tomorrow. All right. Let me go edit some of this stuff out. Mostly my flubs. And I'll post this up tonight. Later.